Okay, so I kind of wanted to break down how to clean a snowmobile carburetor. This is a Mikuni off from, I think it's either a 600 or a 700 MXZ ZX chassis. So we're just basically gonna break down how to get your carburetor open, how to clean it, and how to put it back together, of course, and what those components are inside of the carburetor. So we'll go ahead and break that down. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do, or I'm gonna do, is glove up, because we're gonna be using some carb cleaner. We're gonna be touching a little gas. Some people don't care, I care. Just gonna go ahead and get some old stuff off from here. I like to cut these overflow lines off, and you can put them back on after. I just like to cut them off so that they're out of the way when you're trying to tear your carb apart. It's also really nice to have a cleaner workspace. I've got some tools already put out that I know I'm gonna need, like the 6mm crescent wrench to get the main jet out, my flathead screwdriver for getting the pilot jet out, my Phillips screwdriver for taking off these screws, and a tray to put all of my stuff in, and of course some good old carb cleaner. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with getting these screws out to take the bowl off. It's important that, especially if the screws look a little rusted, to put some penetrating oil in there, just because these screws tend to strip really easy, unfortunately. I've had to drill them out before, get on them with a pair of vice grips. So typically before I take the bowl off, I would tip it upright, just in case there's some gas in there, but this one's been out of the sled for over a year, so probably not any gas in there. I just tried pulling it off. This probably is one of the ones where you have to unscrew this, because that probably holds. Oh, never mind. Okay, so it's just on here, so you might have to tap it a little bit to get it to free up. Okay, so this one, has some buildup in it. Not anything too crazy. I'm gonna take my bowl and I'm just gonna set it aside over here, and I'm gonna get right into taking the pilot jet out and the main jet. Okay, I'm gonna start off with taking my 6mm. Now, if you're doing both carbs at once, you're gonna wanna remember which jet goes to which, because oftentimes, not always, but often, the PTO side will be different from the mag side on what size jets they use. I'm just doing one carb right now, so it doesn't really matter. But you'd wanna keep those jets to that carb. Okay, so take our flathead screwdriver now. A lot of pressure because it is brass, so it's kind of weak. Take that pilot out. So there's our pilot jet, and this is I want to say a 52 or 57.5, and the main jet is a 280. So again, if you were doing two carbs at once, you'd want to keep those separate because they might be different from the other carb. The next thing that's really important to take out is this sleeve right here. You can see the other side of it there. It's important to take this out because that can often clog up with corrosion, debris, and just buildup of stuff. So you really want to have something, if you're going to tap this out, you really want to have something that fits on this surface, because you do not want to bang up the threads, because you need to be able to screw your main jet back in. So what I like to do is I use this little socket right here. It fits really nicely. And I take the hammer, I give it a tap, and usually if there's not a lot of stuff built up in it, it'll be like this, and it just slides out. And you can see there's some stuff in that one. So we're gonna set that aside. Now, it can be a risk to tap this dowel out. If the carb was super dirty, I would say, you know, spray some PB Blaster on there, carefully tap it out, because I just had two that I broke one of these arms off from. Unfortunately, if you can't JB weld it correctly, I don't even know if you can do that, you know, so your carb's probably junk if you do that. So typically, if everything feels good in here and you're sitting nice and level and it feels nice and springy, and then just spray some carb cleaner in there, and more often than not, you will be good. Okay, now the fun part. We get to spray some carb clean all over this thing. So we're gonna spray it down to the sleeve here, down into your pilot jet hole, through this post. Again, spray it down here where that needle is. Spray it to these holes. Really work it around. I also spray these ones. You should pretty much spray any orifice on the carb and any surface. This side. Watch your eyes when you do this. Spray your sleeve here. Okay. Now, we're going to try to scrape that crud off from there. So we got our paper towel on hand with a little screwdriver. Just gonna work it out as much as you can. Some carburetors that have been sitting for a long time or might just have a bunch of plaque built up into them, you might want to throw it in something like an ultrasonic cleanser, or, you know, like a chemical bath for the night. But I'm okay with that little bit of stuff left there. The next thing you want to do is take some air, if you have access to an air nozzle, and you're going to want to blow all those orifices out. I take these ones and I go through this, through your intake, through your overflows. Okay. So the carburetor itself is pretty clean now, so we can start reassembling all the parts. So right before we reassemble this, we are going to just spray this bowl out real quick. Pop these little nubs off with whatever you have handy. Sometimes you can take them off by hand, but sometimes they can be a pain. Okay. Prepping your sleeve, pilot jet, and main jet for getting put back in. So the first thing we're going to do is take your carb clean, take the sleeve, blow it out. There's a tiny little, maybe it's good to have a pick around too, because there's a little piece of debris here. I'd like to get out. Okay. So carb clean, get a hole here, spray into that. Again, take your air. That's ready to be put back in. Main jet, spray down through the hole, both sides. Pilot, same thing. Okay, so you're going to take your sleeve. Now what I do is I take a pair of needle nose pliers and I grab onto the sleeve right here, And there's only one way the sleeve can go back in, because it's got this notch cut out on it. So when you put it back in, it's only going to go back in one way. Oh, this one's really loose in here. Not a bad thing. It just means you have to continue holding it while you screw your main jet in. So put your main jet plate on. Sorry if you can't see this very well. Camera's kind of low. Main jet plate on, and then screw that jet in. Okay. Don't over tighten this, because you can snap it, especially if it's an older piece of brass. So main jet's back on. Time to put the pilot jet back in. Drop it so your thread's on top. Drop it in. Take your screwdriver. And that's tight. So your carb's now reassembled and cleaned. Take the bowl. Your bowl's only going to go on one way. Oops, sorry. As I say that, I'm putting it on the wrong way. We can take some carb clean to this piece right here. Spray it out. Screw this on. And after you put your 4 screws back in, you're all set and you have a clean carburetor. You know, throughout the years, you know, through the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, your mikunis are going to be, you know, there's going to be variations. So there's going to be slightly different components throughout. But for the most part, your jets are going to be the same, and the way it goes together and the way you take it apart is going to be pretty much the same. So that's that.